What's up, guys? Welcome back to Blood, Sweat, and Gear with coaches Andrew Barry and myself, Scott McNally. All of our programming is brought to you by TrueNutrition.com. Use our code THINK over there. They've literally got like every protein powder under the sun. If you saw the last episode, then you know that there might be some benefit to going to a plant-based diet, and you can get pea protein isolate from True Nutrition. Use our code THINK over there. Also, supplementsource.ca for Canadians. I saw some All-Max pre-workout on closeout for like $10-15. I think it was $10 the other day. So if you need a cheap pre-workout, I mean, you can't get cheaper than that. If you're in Canada, check them out. And of course, thank you to everybody from Patreon. We're going to tackle some Patreon questions today. Andrew, what's up, man?
Well, you know, it's a nice day down here in Florida after the hurricane.
We had people worried about you, man.
Yeah, dude, I was worried. We went to Kissimmee to get away from it, and you know, got home and trees all over the place, trees in the pool, fence was down. But you know, we were very blessed compared to some other people that had trees fall on their houses, their cars, flooding. You know, the last hurricane, Helene, one of my clients down here, he lives right on the beach, and he sent me a video at like 10:30 at night with like 4 inches of water going through his bedroom.
Oh God!
Like, yeah. So they were.
Did you guys train at that? Did you guys train while you were in Kissimmee?
Dude, I haven't been to a gym in like 11, 12 days. Maybe
okay.
maybe 10 days.
Because I've heard so many people go to Kissimmee Muscle, and they love that place.
It's not bad.
You've been there, then?
Yeah, no, we've been there several times. It's not bad. You got that one, and then you got Iron Religion about 20 minutes later. Between the two of them, I would say I like Iron Religion better because they've got some Panada stuff now. And yeah, they got a really cool Panada, like that chest press that kind of converges in and has the two separate handles on either side. Yeah. And it's on like a Smith machine setup.
So I'm seeing that more and more now. I saw that because Panada was more popular in the UK before it was here. I used that at a gym over there, man. I never had seen it before. It was the first piece I'd ever used to theirs. Loved it. The only thing is, man, and that was like 3 years ago now, and now I'm seeing that more and more. The only downfall is thinking home gym wise, man, their pieces take up a lot of room, don't they?
Huge, profile. You need to have a big warehouse gym to house their stuff. I mean, I remember we did a dip machine, or like the tricep, dip machine.
Yes.
And I feel like it's like the length, it's probably almost 15 feet long and like 8 feet wide. And it's just for like a triceps, it's the huge profile on their machines. Definitely would be very difficult to bring to your home gym.
Yes. All right. So guys, what we're going to do today is we're just going to tackle all your listener questions. You guys have left us a bunch and we're going in no particular order. We're just literally diving in. Of course, if you guys have any questions for the next show, I mean, this is how we do things. You guys leave us questions, we answer your questions. So plus that helps to boost our programming in the algorithm. And if you're just tuning in for the first time or you're newer to our content, then let me encourage you to subscribe because we do have several shows that come out each week and YouTube isn't always great at showing our content to you. So, it might be the last time you see us otherwise if you don't subscribe. How about this one? It says, less of a question, more of a topic for BSG. He says, go into a deep dive on improving and maximizing sleep while on cycle. Now, I know we've hammered all the sleep hygiene stuff. So maybe we can make it quicker. Like what are 3 tips, something like that. 3 tips for improved sleep.
Excluding sleep hygiene or including?
Oh, anything.
Okay. So, I do think you need to have a sleep routine, We're all busy people. We go to the gym, work, lifestyle, whatever. So you got to have a way to wind down at night. And part of that includes a sleep hygiene routine where, like, I'll just touch on mine real quick. Somewhere around 8:30, I'm done work. I shower, I eat, and then I read for 30, 45 minutes. And then usually the lights are all off in terms of overhead. We shut off the overhead lights. We just use in lamps. The house gets nice and cool, bring it down to like 62, 63 degrees. And then we go to bed because that's what your body likes. Your body wants to have a temperature somewhere around 62, 63 degrees. You want to remove all sources of light, even LED lights, like lights that show up on like your TVs or like a clock, your cell phone, all those little things. Additionally, blue light blocking glasses from any type of screen that is excitatory to your brain, that will disrupt your sleep. Not even just falling asleep, but it can disrupt your sleep and cause you to wake up Other things that you might want to look at is, your meal timing. Some people don't do with a large meal before bed. I'm someone, I eat my last meal right before I go to sleep. So, we go and lay down and I get tired, and then I get up and I go have my Ninja Creamy right around midnight, and then I conk out right after that. Some other tips that, might be a little unconventional. I do a lot of, I like to do a book on tape as I'm falling asleep.
That's what I've been doing.
The key thing there, though, is that you can't pick a book that you really like, because then you'll fall asleep and you'll wake up 3 hours later and turn the thing off, and you've missed like a good 5 chapters of it. So you got to pick like your reading material is something that's kind of interesting, but just kind of background noise to help you wind off.
I found a channel that is it's a YouTube channel that it does like all this history stuff. And it's different like 2-hour segments, right? So I can say I'm going to turn this on and I'm going to listen for probably 20 minutes, and then I fall asleep. I don't know where I left off, so then I start it half hour in the next night. So it's a great way to find just little things. Or they have sleep meditations. And, those are fantastic too, because they're like telling you to relax, and then they'll walk you down a path or something like that. And before you know it, man, if I'm just trying to lay there, I don't fall asleep. But if I put that on, I'm in sleep by 5 minutes,
I agree with you. Supplement wise, there's different supplements, and it could be based off different issues, but
sure.
If you're someone that wakes up like at 2-3 in the morning, almost without fail, you probably are having a cortisol surge, and you might have a dysfunctional circadian rhythm, and you just need to reset that. So certain supplements, like last episode, we had Jason Theobald on. I recommend a supplement his company sells called Cordy's, to be taken somewhere, around 8-9 p.m. To help lower your cortisol levels and to get them back into rhythm. So, because you want a cortisol surge in the morning, that's how you wake up, but you don't want that surge happening at 2-3 in the morning. Other things, like if you're on like a restricted diet, like you're in contest prep, you might need some serotonin for satiety. 5-HTP can help a little bit with that. And then if you just want to try to zonk out, valerian root does help for a lot of people as well.
Yeah. I have one to add, since you added a bunch. It's 4 words: white trash AC, which I learned from you. I never actually did it. Tell them what white trash AC is, because we might have some people who hadn't heard it before.
Yeah, man. So like if you grew up poor like we did, and we did not have air conditioners in our house, we did have fans. You take a bottle of aloe and you cover your body head to toe, and you go and stand in front of the fan for like 5 minutes until you're shivering, and then you go and lay down, and your body temperature's lowered significantly.
Yeah. Hey, we got a question asking you follow up. What attachment does Andrew prefer to use for the pit shark for hamstrings?
What attachment do I prefer to use?
Did you say something about it? I think you were doing like maybe was it a stiff leg?
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So yeah, just a regular straight bar. We don't use. It's really whatever's handy. As long as you got a good grip on it, I don't think you need to look for a particular attachment.
Yeah. All right. How about, what are you guys' thoughts on Methyl 1 test? Is it an effective pre-workout, possibly a pre-contest compound, or should it be used in off-season?
It's hard to say, right? Because you take something like that, what's it going to do to your estrogen? What's it going to do to your estrogen, right? So I don't know if I would necessarily use that as a pre-contest, pre-workout product. And I'll admittedly say I don't have a lot. I don't even know if I've taken it. I know I took some of the stuff in the bottle, around 2009, and I think that's when it was sold. I might have used a little bit of it, but it wasn't like a go-to compound for me ever. How about you?
Yeah, I messed around with it a little bit. I think it was after it was no longer available, a UGL came out with it. So I never tried it when you could buy it off the shelf, but then I bought it or was given it, I should say, by a UGL. And it was like it was very D-ball like, and I mentioned to you before the show that there was rumor that some of the D-ball was actually Methyl 1 test. It was a real, I think there was a lot of estrogen from what I remember. And it was definitely like a real bloofy look. It was not something I would want to add in. I'd add that in about as often as I'd add in D-ball pre-contest, which is never,
Ever. Yeah. And, I will add one real quick. If someone wanted to try like a pre-workout, testosterone, something or other mix, do something like TNE with some halotestin, and you'll be ready to run through a brick wall. And again, you got to watch your estrogen, you got to watch other sides, but and you watch blood pressure. But like 50 mgs of TNE and 20, 30 milligrams of halotestin. And you don't want to be doing this full, for long stretches, right? You're gonna really mess your health up. But if, let's say, you're going for a new PR in like a squat or whatever lift it is, and you've been working and you've only been using it on those days, that would be the time to use it. Would, like, your leg day, maybe once a week for a 4-week stretch. You're really trying to get over a plateau, or if you have a weak body part and you have a hard connection to it, making a connection to it, it might help you a little bit with a little bit of that aggressive drive, I guess.
Yeah, I could see that. I've only ever done Halo in the in contest prep. I've never done it to bring through like a strength plateau or anything. I know Jordan Peters is a fan. His whole style of training, it's so so intense, and his progressive overload is just so far up there. I don't know if many of us would need to do the things that Jordan does to be Jordan. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I was watching some of his videos maybe a month ago, and I wasn't really impressed with his form. And I know he's known as a form guy, and I think he's gotten so strong that he's moved to and maybe I missed something. Maybe this is something he said, like, and he's literally just trying to move that bar 5 more pounds or, 1 more rep, and he's okay sacrificing the target muscle and using some auxiliary muscles. That's totally fine. But I can't remember what exercise it was. Like, it was a series of videos, and I was like, I don't know if this is a great example for younger trainers coming up, unless he had a caveat of like, look, I've been doing this for 15, 20 years now, and I'm literally just trying to reach a new strength plateau, accepting that I'm using my whole body instead of just the target muscles.
Huh. Interesting. I haven't seen his videos in a little while now. I watch Justin Shire's videos. I like his stuff. He's incredible, man. Yeah.
Textbook.
Yeah. And he is so freaking big, dude. Yeah, Nick as well. Both of those guys. And and we've talked about this a lot on It's Just Bodybuilding, but I think the only mistake people make is they think they see like the slow movement, and they think that you need to like move the weight real slow at all times, like slow concentrics. I think Nick is pressing as hard as he can in some cases,
Yeah, I agree.
All right, what else do we have here? Anybody who wants to throw anything in the live stream is welcome to too.
There's one here from Gamboni Law.
Yes. Okay, we can jump into that one.
Do you believe the bodybuilding and/or fitness lifestyle causes orexia? What is it?
Orthorexia.
Obsession. I couldn't read it. Obsession with clean eating. Have you had clients with this issue? How have they dealt with it? Well, why don't you tackle this one? I'll finish up.
I'll tell you what. I feel like I have worked with clients who maybe there's been situations, and I hate to say it, but it's been more females than males that maybe already had like a history of an eating disorder, or they're using food as a way to like show control, and that I've seen issues there. Is it possible then, for some people? Absolutely. But I don't think that everybody across the board has a disorder just because they're eating clean. I think a contest prep is there's like it might not be an eating disorder, but there's some like disordered eating that goes, or some elements in our brains that would like start leaning towards disordered eating, because like you've never really been hungry to the level that you'll be hungry in a contest prep. And I've known people that, because like food, we need food in our bodies, right? And and then that desire for junk food starts to become so great. I've had people really like question their sense of willpower and stuff like that. Going into a contest prep, you end up learning a lot about what hunger really means and how strong the signal can get.
For sure. I'm not so worried about people that are obsessed with clean eating, because at the very worst, they're eating clean, healthy foods, as long as they're eating the right calories, right?
Yeah.
And it all comes down to your personal lifestyle and your choices. Like, you probably have friends that you go out to eat and everyone else is getting a burger and they're like, no, I'm getting my chicken, I'm getting rice. Like, they're not bringing a Tupperware, but they're like still sticking to as close to their plan as they possibly could. I have no problem with that. It's everyone's free choice, and everyone knows what they can get away with in terms of, veering off from their plan. But what I do have a problem with is when you tell a client like, hey, I need you to eat big today. I want you to do a burger and fries on top of an extra 300 grams of carbs throughout the day. And they might eat the 300 grams of carbs from the cleanest source they have. And then they're like, well, I had a bite of a burger. And it's like, no, man. Like, I wanted to see the response that we're going to get from this. So we're going to have to do this again next week. And next week, I want you to actually eat the burger or whatever it might be, or you tell someone, maybe you're not so specific. You're like, hey, I want you to have a free meal tonight. You give a couple examples, like 5 rolls of sushi, burger, fries, or whatever. And they come back and they're like, well, I had an extra 50 grams of cream of rice with a scoop of peanut butter in it. And it's like, that's not what we were looking for here. That's basically your contest diet with a few extra carbs, So when we're as coaches trying to look for a response and to see what happens to their body with a bolus amount of food, that's where I have issues. I'm like, no, I wasn't telling you this to give it to you as a reward or anything. I was doing this as for an aesthetic effect and for a psychological and physical effect on your body to see what effect it has. And is it a positive thing or is it a negative thing? Can we do it again? Should we do it again? So, but yeah, I don't really have a problem with people that are, we're all, as bodybuilders and people that are fitness related, we're obsessed with clean eating, or we should be. Let's look at the other way. What's the opposite of clean eating? The typical American diet. Americans.
What's healthy about that? Yeah.
We consume something like 75% of the world's pharmaceutical products in one country. We're a country that's like, I think it's like 70% overweight and over 50% obese now. So if you're a clean eater and you're obsessed with it, then you're going to live longer. You're going to live healthier. You're going to be able to do things that other people can't do for a lot longer than they can do them. And I don't see a problem with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have a problem as long as it's not like you're having emotional issues because, you can't get the food that you needed or wanted. There's a line in there. And I guess if you have issues, then you probably already know it. If you have a history of an eating disorder, you're going to have to be really careful going into bodybuilding. I'll say that,
Yeah. But I'll tell you what, though, it sounds bad, but like I do admire people that do have some of those mental disorders because like they stick to it and like they see it.
Yeah.
If we could take some of that in their brains and put it into some of our clients' brains, it would make the dieting process a whole lot easier. It's like they just don't feel the hunger. They have a way of blocking it out that just, I'll leave it at that. But
whether you're a bodybuilder, a triathlete, whoever you are, whatever your goal is, it is customized to you. I developed my reputation as a no BS kind of guy. I'm Dante Trudell, half owner of True Nutrition.
I know what you mean. Question for the next episode. When performing higher rep sets, are they continuous reps or are some pauses in between the reps? This relates to, I think, a conversation Skip and I had on the last episode.
Okay. It depends. Like, I would say it's probably more like the latter. Like if you're going to true failure and you're doing like, we've all done Widowmakers on like your 20 rep squats or your 20 rep leg press. I remember those days where you would get like 15 reps, almost continuous.
So for like a piston. Yeah, like right? Widowmaker and like this is an end of the world set.
Yeah, and you have a number in your head that you have to get, or you have a number in your head. Like last week I did 20 reps with 405. This week I have to get 21. Or I'm a failure, right? So it might go like that. Because I remember the first time I did it with a 405 squat, it was like I got to like 14 and I took like 2 deep breaths and I got 4 more and I took a big deep breath and I got 2 more and I took another 1 or 2 deep breaths standing there with the weight. Like every muscle in my body, every bone in my body was like, dude, just rack it. But my brain was mentally like, no, I got 2 more. And I did 1 more rep, took 1 more big breath and stood for a second and then banged out 1 more and then collapsed. Right. So I would call that 1 set. I don't think anyone would say, oh, that was 3 sets in 1. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because how are you really going to failure if you can still do continuous motion on a repetition without the speed slowing down a little bit, or especially for these higher rep sets, by the way. I'm not talking about like your 6 to 8s or anything like that. I'm talking about your higher repetition sets.
I think we are talking about maybe working. I'm trying to remember back to the show because it's been a couple weeks. I think we are talking about working in slightly higher reps, like maybe 12 to 15 instead of doing 8 to 10. So that's a different scenario then. So because I agree with you on that, though. Well, you couldn't have known, but I think that the Widowmakers, you got me thinking, man, that there's something really special about that. That teaches you what true failure really is, and you can't do what Andrew just described for every single set. Like you're not going to do that through an entire workout, but when you do that, you end up like learning how to dig deeper. And then on your straight normal sets, I think that you learn to push those further as a result.
I remember like when I was working with Dante, those like the leg days, everything leading up to that, like all the calves, the hamstring, the adductor work, they were all just really, in my mind, they were warm-ups. Even though I was going to failure and I was doing exactly as he wanted, I was going to failure, but they were warm-ups for the heavy squat and then the Widowmaker squat, or the heavy leg press and the Widowmaker leg press, or the heavy front squat and the Widowmaker front squat. Like, because when you do like a set like that 20 plus reps with 300, 400 more pounds, everything you've done before that literally seems like a warm-up. And you're focusing on like your hamstring curls, but you're mentally like, okay, like I'm getting myself ready for that Widowmaker squat I got to do in 15, 20 minutes. You know what I mean? But in regards to like the 12, 15 rep sets, I mean, I guess it depends, right? Like if you have good control and you, and I guess you also got to look back at what is true failure, right? Because are you getting to true failure when you can no longer concentrically use the same speed as you did on your first rep, or are you true failure when you're like your speed slows down and maybe someone's just giving you a little tap just to get the weight up? You know what I mean? And it's not something I can literally explain exactly. It's something I know when I'm doing it, and I know when you're doing it, like, oh man, I hit failure there.
Absolutely. I would say it depends for me, just in general. So I remember there was a time that I didn't keep any kind of consistency in my sets. I didn't have any kind of rhythm to it. I would just get a rep and then I would stop right early on. And then you get a rep and then you stop. And you take the leg press, I just do like a rep and then lock out. Yeah. And then wait a second and then do a rep and then lock out. And I think there's something to be said for like keeping the tension in the legs, coming all the way up to the top, nice, slow, controlled negative back down. And the way I've tried to explain it is I remember in high school, I took an auto shop class and we had a model of a piston, and you could see the piston and you could turn this crank and the piston would go up and down. There was no definitive point at the top where the piston stopped. It literally was just one smooth motion. Now I want to slow that negative down, but I try to take, say, like that 20 rep leg press. I'm going to try to basically get to the top of the leg press and then immediately begin that negative, keeping that tension in the leg as much as I can. And if I wanted to track that, let's say I got 20 reps and the first 15 of them were constant. Probably not. It'd probably be like the first 12 reps are constant.
Whatever.
And then I, take a breath and then I do a few more and take a breath and do a few more. I'll write down or I'll make a note to myself. Okay, so I got the first 12 constant reps. Next time I do this, I am going to try to get 13 constant reps and still get to 20 or 21, and eventually get to that point, because I know that I remember, or I've worked with people even today where they do that with the leg press, where it's like one rep and stop, one rep and stop. Maybe they try to do a 12 rep set, and now that they're doing constant reps, they can't handle as much weight, first of all. But then second of all, maybe they can only get like 6 constant reps. And then from there, they have to break. Work up to it, like progress over time and try to get to that point where maybe a month from now, you're doing 12 constant reps, even if it's with the same weight. I feel like there's a level of progression in that. I don't know.
100%. There's a level of progression in it. It brings back what you're talking about, the leg press, because you do see like a lot of younger guys in the gym. They completely lock out their legs and they pause for a second before they do the next rep. Yeah. And you'll see a lot more experienced guys understanding that the time under tension, keeping that tension on the quads for the whole entirety of the set. Because you get to a point where you just can't keep adding weight. You're like I can't keep adding weight anymore. So
it's not
like
safe.
How am I going to keep progressing? And it's like you just mentioned, keeping that constant tension on. And okay, like you said, you're trying to get to 15, and on 12 you rack out for a minute, and you're like, whew, and then you bang out your last 3. That's a great progression tool. Next week I'm going to try to get 13 before I take a deep breath and do 2 more reps. And then the next week I'm going to try. That's a great thing for guys to think about in terms of their progression.
Yeah, and eventually to work up to those. Now, for me, on a movement like row movements, I like to really get a good stretch, at the, whether you want to call it the top or the bottom, at the end of the rep. I want to get a good stretch, and I'll pause to an extent. So I see that as different.
Yeah,
because
you're right.
I've seen it where maybe somebody is doing, like, they're not getting that full range of motion, and they're just kind of moving it, 4 inches from the bottom, 4 inches from the top, just working that range back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Yeah. I'd rather like get that full stretch, stop, feel the stretch, engage, row,
Yeah. You're saying almost too much piston, like.
Yeah, in that case.
To where they're not getting that absolute stretch, which is when the muscle's weakest. They're not going through the weakest point. They're keeping the muscle or the working weight in the strongest point of the movement pattern.
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think I'm getting sick, by the way, post-Olympia.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, I've been figuring that out.
Did you get sick last time?
No, thank God.
I feel like there was one trip you got home from.
You know what I did? I got the bug at 2022 Olympia. So I've been good since then. I didn't do a bunch of things since then, but let's hope that I don't think it's anything. We'll see. But my nose is getting really stuffed up here. Let's say someone is running 900 test SIP and test E. So I guess they've got a combo going. 500 Masteron and F8, and they're about to start tren at 30 milligrams a day and eventually add Winstrol and Proviron, 50 milligrams of each every day. Would it make sense to drop the mass to around 400? Was it 500? And would you keep the dose the same when you add more DHT drugs in?
I keep it the same. If anything, at that, because it sounds like they're in more of a contest prep type cycle. At that point, I would possibly start thinking about lowering the testosterone and keeping the DHTs high. That, and again, it's case by case with each person. Sure. But typically, like, when I start to add in things like Winstrol and Proviron, typically I'll bring the testosterone down a little bit because you're going to get more out of your testosterone by adding the Proviron in. So, and at that point, I'm really starting to focus on controlling estrogen. And, that's the main variable, or not the main variable, but it's one of the important variables as we get to that 5, 4, 3, 2 weeks out point that we really want to control. So I would probably start pulling the test. I'd keep the Masteron right where it's at. And I'm not, I have no problem bringing the Winstrol up to 100, maybe not 5 weeks out, 4 weeks out, but, bring that Winstrol up to 100 over the last, 10 days or so, and bring the Proviron up to 100, 150 over the last 10, 15 days for sure.
Skip made a note here. He said, I like the question, but if we use it, I'm going down the pathway of asking you why using Masteron and Proviron. What do you think about that? So he asked him about,
because I think 1 + 1 = 3 in that situation.
Do you?
Yeah, I do. I mean, when I can say, because I've done it without Proviron on myself. Let's just say a contest prepper I did use like Winstrol, test mass, some tren, without the Proviron. Yeah. And then I've done a prep where I added the Proviron in, and I was like blown away with just and it's not a conditioning issue, but just how much more crisp I looked.
Okay.
And it's hard to explain that when we're talking conditioning, water, all that kind of stuff, because no
Sure.
two preps are exactly the same, and but yeah, I do think there's an additive effect. I mean, well, then the same question could be like, well, why add, Anavar and Winstrol in? They're both DHTs.
Yeah. Or why add Winstrol in when you've already got the master?
The mass in the first place. Or even, what was the other one I just had in my head? Why add in, it's shocking.
Primo?
But, yeah, I was going to say, because one prep I started using, thank you. I had a bunch of Primo, and I added Primo in.
Yeah.
To my Masteron, with my Masteron, and I had the Masteron in, and I added the Primo in 5 weeks later, and it added I got dramatically fuller from it by adding the Primo in with the Masteron, with the test, with the trend, and all the other good stuff too. So, and so the same question would be like, well, why are you adding another injectable DHT to the plan, right? Yeah. And this isn't something I would do with everybody, but if someone responds well to Primobolan and they respond well to the other DHTs, I'm gonna use them all.
Yeah. I've definitely combined them. I haven't used Proviron a lot, honestly, though. It's
oh really?
Yeah, I've used it, but not a ton, and not to the point where we're pushing it to, I think, higher doses, really. So
this was I got to give credit to John Meadows for this one, because he was big on Proviron.
Well, John freaking used it.
Yeah. Well, keep in mind, I think he thought it made him grainy too. But I'm like, John, you're grainy when you get out of bed 20 weeks out from a show.
I bet.
But yeah, no, he was the one that taught me about Proviron. And I think my first prep with him in 2013, I think we used 50, and then the last 10 days we bumped it up to 100. And then I started using it more and more with my clients, and now it's not weird for me to bring it up to 150.
I could see that. Yeah, I think with me it had been a cost issue when I was competing, because it wasn't cheap, and it's goes by usually 25 milligrams per pill. So now we're talking 4 pills a day. I think I started at 25. Yeah, I started at 25, and then I'd go to 50, and I definitely think I saw some benefit. But yeah, if I had to pick one or the other, I would pick Winstrol. If there was a, but really, I don't really see Proviron as being like another oral. As far as
me neither.
As far as stress goes on the liver and stuff.
Me neither. I feel like it's pretty innocuous in terms of damage to the liver. I don't have a lot of research to back that up, just based off of using it and throwing it in and looking at labs and being like, man, my liver looks like bodybuilder liver 2 weeks out from a show. It doesn't look like death liver. So
yeah. All right, question for the next one. A friend of mine started using Clen at 20 micrograms for the first time, and he didn't notice any shakiness or stim-like effect. Heart rate seemed to be up, but no other effects. He does consume a lot of caffeine. Could stimulant tolerance be why he didn't feel much?
Quite possibly. Not necessarily at the cellular level, but more so the mental I guess recognition of, am I feeling jittery, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And 20 mics is a pretty low dose. That's the starting dose for most females, I would say.
Hey, I start people at 20. Believe it or not.
Okay.
I do.
Well, no, there's nothing wrong with that. I tend to start people at 40 because I want them to feel it, and I also want the feedback. Like, are you feeling it at 40 mics? Because then I get a better gauge on, do we go up from here? When do we go up from here? Whereas I feel like 20, like we're talking about here, if you're someone that drinks a coffee or drinks a Bang energy drink, I don't know if you're going to notice any psychological effects from it at a low dose.
You know what? Usually, in the way I'll do it is, we'll already be in a position where fat loss is moving, and I consistently know what to expect, and then we'll add the 20 in, and then usually there's some sort of diuretic like effect even from the 20, and so no matter what, we're going to be a little bit lighter the following week. And then I'll go from there, and we'll move it up to 40 after about a week or two, depending on, usually about 2 weeks. Then so when I first started using it, initially it was like the board ideas where you just started at 40 and went to 80 and then 100, 120, rode that out for 2 weeks. And when I started competing, I ran it 40, then 2 weeks later 60, 2 weeks later 80, do that up to 120, and then take a short break. and then repeat. And I found I like using it that method. But as I got better as a coach, I started realizing like, hey, we could start at 20 instead of 40. And so I started thinking, it's like now we get a little bit more extended time. Might not be as strong of an effect, but we're getting it in maybe 2 weeks earlier than we would have that way. I don't know.
I have a lot of females that we use Clen year round.
Really?
Dose, yeah, for the mild muscle building benefits you get out of it. Mild. This isn't like adding Anavar or PD in, but and I find that I'm able to feed them a little bit more, just from having that slight thermogenic effect. Now we always hear about, or we see the studies about, down regulation of the receptors. So it's like, do I keep them on it year round, and continuously for longer periods? Not year round, but yeah, usually I'll use it for longer periods of time, more so for that muscle, because we're not necessarily looking for fat loss out of it at that point. But I definitely pull it out for a good month before we actually start a fat loss phase where I want to use it for fat loss.
Well, I can tell you as a bronchodilator that it will continue working long term, So there is still an effect, because I've used it like after I started having lung issues, after I got sick. And I tried albuterol. It was doing nothing. And they were having me take steroids. And it's like, none of this stuff is working. Why don't I just take some Clen? I eventually, after 6 months, was like, you know what? Screw the medical system. They literally aren't helping me. I'm going to do this myself. And I started taking Clen and doing cardio. I was like, now I can breathe. And I've run it for long periods of time. Now, granted, it's been low dose like that, like 20 mics. Maybe then after a while, go to 40. And somebody at home might be saying like, oh, your heart, but like I've had my heart scanned and everything's completely fine. I don't think when you're using it at those low doses either, you're going to get massive, health issues from it. It is after all medication.
That is. Do you ever use Broncaid?
I have. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know
a lot of,
I'm not as big of a fan as Primatine tablets, because they're the same. They're HCl. Sulfate? They're HCl, the Broncaid, or excuse me, the Primatine, and then the Broncaid is citrate, I believe. Sulfate, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Now the Broncaid, last time I took it 5-7 years ago, used to be ephedrine HCl as well. So I don't know why they changed. Yeah, because I remember distinctively researching it hardcore then. I don't know why they changed the formula. But so I go with the Primatine tablets for that reason, because they're the HCl instead. And I mean, do you notice much of a difference between the two? No, not really. Yeah, no. I think it's maybe like marginally, HCl is marginally better, but I don't think it's gonna, like if we had two identical twins and each one took, like we're not gonna get different effects. They're both gonna look the same. I don't think so. No. All right. I talked to Scott recently about Clen and Yohimbine, and we got into a conversation about him knowing somebody, a female, who uses Yohimbine long term through the off season for to offset fat gain, basically while in an off season phase. Yeah, no, I do that with some females as well. Now. The issue with the Yohimbine, right, is if you're someone that feels the side effects from it, you can't just do regular Yohimbine HCl year round. Like you can tolerate it for prep because you're like, okay, I know I got to get lean and this is helping me get lean. Yeah. Most people, when they take it, right, they start to feel very weird, or they start to, like when I take large doses of it, I should say, I'm like cold all the time, but I'm sweating bullets, and I am very, I'm very anxious, I guess, is the best way to put it. And so I definitely know when I've taken a dose of Yohimbine. And I know there's other sources of it that you can take, but I just don't think they're as effective as Yohimbine HCl in terms of fat loss. Yeah, I agree. I'm one of those people. I can't use it. I do have a client that we used it through a cutting phase. We reduced it some, and now we're in a growth phase. And after having that conversation, it was probably like 6 months ago with Scott, I decided like, we're going to give this a try. So I've got somebody that we're experimenting with. He's a guy who tends to put on fat more easily too. So we'll just see how that works at a low dose. Yeah. Scott, I was listening to a previous podcast and you briefly mentioned
you had front-loaded EQ. Can you go into this a bit more? How did you do it, and what did you think, and was it worth doing? So, do you front-load ever?
No, I just start the cycle.
Anymore.
And with clients, I just start the cycle. Let's do it.
Yeah. I used to years ago.
Did you?
Oh yeah.
Like what do you say in front loading? Are you saying like you took massive or much larger doses of the compound, or you added say orals in the first 2 weeks?
Either.
Yeah.
Or both.
All the above.
Yeah. No, we, it was popular, and I'm sure you remember that time. It was probably like 15, 20 years ago. You wanted to get your levels up faster. So if you took, say like your cycle was 500 tests, you took 1,000 the first week or two, something like that. So when I took EQ, it was like a fourth cycle, and I'd used 400 Deca in my previous cycle. I was like, okay, I'm going to use 400 EQ in this cycle. I was so disappointed, man. Like it was the worst cycle ever. So I wrote EQ off, never touched it again for like 2 years. And then finally I came back around because I'm like, what else haven't I done? And EQ was on that list. I was like, I only used it that one time. What if I run it at like 800 milligrams? I was like, I bet that'd be a good dose. This is, like I said, probably about 3, maybe even 4 years later.
Okay.
I was like, what if I run it at 800 milligrams? Try that out. And then I thought to myself, well, we're front load stuff, right? So why don't I try 16 for the first week? I mean, it worked. Like, that's all I can say. It worked.
My answer, if someone wants a front load, let's say testosterone or something, like, well, why don't we add some, test prop in that first week as well?
I like that idea better.
Like a test E and a test prop, which I'm a big advocate of using a Sustanon type, blend. And I know Sustanon's a patented product, but we're talking about a testosterone with different esters. So they hit your system at different rates, right? I know Skip would agree with me because I think he also does like test E and test prop with every testosterone injection. So that would be the way I would front load someone, at least with testosterone.
And that's how I got into the discovery of, because, I thought to myself, I wanted to do EQ again down the road. Yep. And I thought, but I want something faster. And I said, okay, so how about nandrolone and phenylpropionate? And that's how I discovered test, EQ, and PP.
There you go.
Yeah. You could take that further, man. You could take it further. Like, I mean, test-wise, you could do test prop as well with that, like test prop, test E blend or something like that. And then you're getting the benefits of like full on NPP within the first week or two, right? Yeah, while you wait for the equipoise and the long esters to build.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I'm with you 100%. What is your take on Anadrol, specifically mitigating? Let's talk about mitigating the side effects, specifically gyno, the strange estrogen-like effects, even though it does not convert into estrogen.
I mean, in my experience with myself and clients, I don't really see that with Anadrol. The main side effect I see is the appetite loss. Which, and the crazy thing about Anadrol, which makes you not want to stop it, is you might miss a meal and you're like, oh, I'm up a pound again the next day, and I'm getting harder, and I'm looking fuller, and you're down on calories because you're losing your appetite, but you're continuing to grow. You're like, is this magic? But at the end of the day, like, when you pull it, like, you're going to lose a lot of that fullness and you're going to drop 2 or 3 pounds. But no, so like, I like to run Anadrol in like 10 or 14 day spurts most of the time. It's weird when I do have a client that's like, no, dude, my appetite's great. Can I keep taking it? And I'm like, all right, let's push it for one more 5-day stint here and let's see how you feel. And they're like, no, dude, like, my appetite's not gone. And I'm like, are you being honest with me? Like, because like, I've taken lots of Anadrol. Usually around 8 days, I really start to feel it, and I push it to 10, maybe 13, 14 days before I'm like, all right, this is enough. Because, like, you got to eat to grow. And if you are getting to day 10, 11, 12, and you're like, oh man, I don't even think I can eat 4 meals today. Like, that creates a lot of mental stress, right?
Oh yeah.
because like, oh, I'm deviating from my plan. Like, and worst thing you can do is deviate from your plan, because it messes up the rest of your day and it messes up your your psychology basically. But I don't really have a lot to say about the purported estrogen effects. Maybe it has something to do with influencing progesterone. I think I remember reading about that in the past, but I just don't really think it has that much of a negative effect. So,
yeah, Dave talked about this recently. We were asked on drugs and stuff, and I'm not sure if he listens to that. You can check that out. But honestly, I'm with you, man. That the main thing I get is appetite decreases, and I feel like if we're in an off-season phase and we're making good progress, meaning like the scale's going up, your strength is really good, and your appetite is on track, we could keep somebody hungry like all through an off-season. And I'm kind of scared of ruining that, because once that appetite's gone, now we're going to have to like pull things back. It's going to be a matter of time and maybe less food, in order to get back to where you were. So I'm always really careful, meaning like I don't want to overstep that window when I use Anadrol.
On that note, point about pulling back food, I don't think it's a bad thing to pull back food in the off season. And if you remember, we were talking to Dom Kuza a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about, I think me and him both agreed on a strategy of, let's just say, like, for an example, like 2 weeks in a surplus, 1 week with a slight pullback. So, and maybe your slight pullback really just brings you back down to a baseline.
You're not like in a deficit. You're just not pushing quite as hard.
But we're not like pulling your carbs out and adding 45 minutes of cardio a day or anything like that. It's really like, just to give an example, like I got a guy that say he's eating like 620 grams of carbs and he's been there that way for 3 weeks. I might say, okay, this week, let's pull you back to 450. So we're going to keep your intra, your pre and post the same, but I might just say, why don't you pull carbs from, some of your carbs from meal 1, 2, and meal 6 or something like that. Yeah. And we'll give a number and I'll let them decide on the foods and the choices that they want to make on that. But I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And the name of the game is insulin sensitivity. You're really not going to grow efficiently unless you're staying insulin sensitive. And that's our approach to stay sensitive as long as possible.
I agree with you 100%. I just don't want to throw things off and ruin the appetite, and then be forced to kind of like Band-Aid things. It's not something I had always done, like pulling back. I think I've oftentimes in the past tried to keep the food maybe low enough on the off days where we keep it lower there. We keep a balance where you can kind of continually grow throughout an entire off season. But after you said that, I've thought about it more, and there are people that I think could really benefit from pulling back. It's a couple people that I'm working with that the guy that I was leaving a message for right when we started, we were on, has to be about 350 carbs, and we just removed 90 now. It's not a huge, it's not a huge amount of carbs, but I definitely think for him, it's going to spark the hunger up. And it's not like he's not going to grow, especially after we learned that you can grow in a 500 calorie deficit, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, like at the end of the day, like as bodybuilders, and if you're in an off season, you're probably running a cycle, right? So you're running a cycle, like it's pretty hard to lose muscle when you're running, some decent drugs. You're training hard still. And if anything, your training might even get better and more efficient because you have less of a bloat, less of a gut. You're more insulin sensitive. You're holding less water. So yeah, I'm a big fan, and it's what I do with a lot of people now and it's not just a 2 weeks on, 1 week off, but it could be 4 weeks for some people. It could be 6 weeks for some people. And it could be a 1 week, pullback, or it could be a 2 week pullback. There's no set, ratio, I guess is what I'm trying to say, because I think the alternative is you get to a point in the off season where you're like, okay, I'm fat, my appetite's shot, and I'm just kind of looking. Yeah, you're done. You're just kind of looking flat and fat all the time. And that's a big mistake I made with a lot of my off seasons almost throughout my whole career and I called it, me in the off season, I suck. I get fatter and flatter.
Yeah.
Whereas and the number one thing is because I try to control my insulin sensitivity, but it's sliding. It's not the same way as it was when you're in a contest prep situation. So my whole thing is just try to maintain insulin sensitivity as best we can year round, off season, on season, whatever you want to call it.
I would say that my off seasons aren't as high as they used to be either for people. Like like what I would have done a decade ago. There's a guy I work with who might even watch this, Zach, who we had worked together through contest preps in the past, and now we're working together just so that he can get into better shape. You know, he's very, very busy with work and all that, but he wants to look good still, and he does. Like we've got lines in his legs and stuff like that, and he's like, let's shift gears. I was like, all right. So we dieted him down. He went on a vacation. And then when he came back from the vacation, we got back on the diet so that he could like kind of tighten back up from that. And and then he sent me a diet idea. He's like, here's what I propose we do. And it was just like carbs across the board, and I could see myself having done something like that early on, like in a first contest prep off season or second. But now, man, we're eating a little bit more than he was, in the diet, and he's growing. I was talking to Kuba the other day, and I think one of the things I've learned in the last, whatever years has been that like we can only grow so much muscle so fast. Yeah. And, if I can get somebody moving at a good consistent rate, like we're not going to grow 2 pounds of muscle per week, right? Yeah. So if you gain 2 pounds every week, there's probably going to be trouble, come 8 weeks from now.
Well, I mean unless you're a genetic freak.
There's that.
I've got a guy, Emmanuel, a Cuban Flex on Instagram. Okay. He was 260. We had him on a cruise and taking a break for, 8 weeks. He was like he got down to like 262. He was on vacation, a couple things going on. And then we started pushing him again, pumped his food back up. He's already back up to like 282. And dude, he's round and full as a mofo. And I'm sitting there just looking at his pictures every week. Like, dude, your genetics are out of this world. We're going to get him on stage next year. He's a pro. Nice. But yeah, so some people they're few and far in between, but you can just feed them. And you're running out of hours in the day to feed them because they can just process food at such a great rate.
Yeah. So there's definitely exceptions, and there's going to be windows where you gain more than others, right? Like we can't just say it's 1 pound every week, because when you go on cycle, it's probably going to be more than that in the first couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's usually, you might see a bump in the first 3 weeks of like 5 to 7 good quality pounds, and then it levels off to like 0.3, 0.4, down of half pound, and then you bump the calories up again. So it's kind of that game you play as a coach of, okay, we're really stoking the metabolism. They're looking good, so now we got to feed them more, or we got to pull back. They're starting to look a little sloppy. We got to pull them back. It's not positive gains at this point. So, yeah.
The genetic outliers, Scott Stevenson called David Henry. He said it's like driving a Ferrari. Yeah. He's like, you can't drive it too hard. I mean, Yep. All right. Let's see what else we have here. Question for the next show. 5 to 6 weeks ago, I started suffering from tennis elbow. It's been affecting my shoulder and arm. My shoulder and arm training quite a bit. I took a week off and 1 week of light pump work, but it hasn't helped. Is there anything I can do to fix it? Would BPC help? Thanks as always, and keep up the great work.
Absolutely. BPC, hit it hard, at least 1 milligram a day for like a good 10 days. If it's really intense, I would say take the weekend off from training, like a Saturday, Sunday. And this is something I picked up from a liver doctor. When I was trying to get into medical school, and I was doing some shadowing, I guess, in clinic, and I was talking about some of my inflammation issues and whatnot, and he would say, look, there's no problem with taking max dose of ibuprofen and Tylenol every 2 hours. So he would say, wake up 8 a.m., take the max dose of ibuprofen, and then 2 hours later take the max dose of Tylenol. And then 2 hours after that, another max dose of ibuprofen, and alternate those two every 2 hours for a good, somewhere in the 10 to 16 doses, or eight doses of each. Yeah. Okay. Over the course of a Saturday and Sunday. And I'll tell you what, I did it one time and for a tennis elbow issue. And I was like, holy crap, I can move it. I could pick up coffee cups. I could turn, the door, the handle on the door. I could do all those little things that aggravate the hell out of it. Now it did kind of come back because I was literally just band-aiding it. and allowing
Right.
myself, but if he's in a pinch and something, he needs his arm for something, that's something you can do. But I'll also say, I have all my clients do these when they have these issues. On Amazon for $10, you get these little finger extender things that, you just go like that. They're like these little rubber band type things. And if you just type in on Amazon finger extensor or finger extender tool or something like that, they're $10. They're like 5 different strengths, and they send you all of them. And you just sit there while you're at your computer or watching TV and just do like a random set of like 15 to 20 reps. And then 5 minutes later, do another set of 15 to 20. And at the end of the day, you end up with like 15 sets or something like that. And over the course of a week, you'll probably find that your tennis elbow is completely gone away.
Yeah, I like that idea, because you at the end of the day, you have to do something to strengthen it up.
Yeah.
I would say and I remember, who was it we talked to? They said they stopped using straps altogether.
Was it Kuba maybe, or
no? It was what's his name from I can't even. My brain's like melting down now. Apparently,
okay.
From Tennessee. It was Turner.
Turner Riddle. Yeah, Turner Riddle.
And I respect everybody's got different approaches. I actually use straps more because I want to try to limit how much I'm straining the grip and keeping that inflammation up. Instead, I want to do like physical therapy for the elbow and reduce the like environmental stress. I'll call training environmental stress, or I would get it from work, trying to pick things up and carry and all that. So for me, I found that reducing environmental stress was huge. Removing exercises altogether that would mess it up worse, like a dumbbell front raise with your palm down. That's like one of the worst things you can do for tennis elbow.
Yeah.
And then
one more thing.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say
voodoo floss. You ever do voodoo floss?
Yes, I've tried it. I haven't had a lot of success with it, but I've seen people have success.
How much did you use it though?
Not enough. Like I didn't really figure it out enough, I think.
It's like with physical therapy. When I used to train people, and I'd set them up with a physical therapist, and I'd see their sheet. It'd say 3 times a day, do these exercises, 2 sets of 10 or whatever. Yeah. Like, oh, how's your PT going? They're like, it's not really working. And I'm like, did you do what the sheet said? They're like, I did it once the other day, and I think I did it last night. It's like, then you can't say it didn't work. I couldn't expect a training or a coaching program not to work if I followed the diet 50, 60% of the time and went to the gym 2 out of the 5 days.
I wasn't good at it. Like I would needed to do it more, versus for me, I've always done the physical therapy exercises and that they worked for me. So I've leaned more into like the thing that I already know versus trying to teach myself something new. But I'm all for getting inflammation down, like you said, out the gate, because at the end of the day, that's really what this problem is we're getting like a ton of inflammation. All that blood is rushing to try to repair and carry away waste materials, bring growth factors or whatever else, but it creates a traffic jam. So it's not going to heal until you get the inflammation down. The problem is once you get the inflammation down, then you do the stupid things that caused it. So you have to be like super aware of that and, do the therapy as well. And then 100%. BPC, all for it.
Oh yeah. Just keep an IV drip of BPC going.
Yeah, all day. See if we have anything else here that we need to get to. How about this one? We're talking on the last episode, me and Skip, about how like looks are an important part of things like men's physique, things like bikini, that and you could see Skip saying, he's like, you got to be attractive to do well in these classes, that something along those lines. And I think there's an element of present an attractive look versus be a knockout. But let me throw the question in and you can continue to ponder what you're thinking here. He just says,
okay.
I'm not ugly, but I'm not pretty. Does that mean I can still do classic?
Is the physique pretty?
Yeah.
I mean, my question is, you can do classic if your physique is classic. Like, okay, first I'll say this. Guys, you have a lot more leeway than females do. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
You could be the ugliest dude in the world. If you've got a Bumstead or a Mike the Badass physique, you're going to the Olympia. You're placing in 1 and 2. Like they're not going to hold you back for that. I will say things like tattoos. When you have too many tattoos, or something that's distracting. Like for instance, I'll give another example. Urs had that ridiculous hair on stage, and you even pointed out, man, his face looks a little different. Like, is he aging because of PEDs? Is he? I thought he looked aged because he had gotten leaner in the face than he ever had before. But I thought the hair was a major distraction from his physique. So what I'm going with here is, if anything about your look is distracting from the beauty of the physique, that's where you're going to get marked down. On the female side of things, there's a lot more to worry about, right? You got to have. You got to have your makeup's got to match, right?
Yeah.
And there's a big difference between stage makeup and regular makeup, because a lot of times, you have some first time females and they're like, oh no, I'm not going to order the makeup. I'm just going to do it in my room. And it's like, oh, no, you don't understand. Like you're going to look like a scarecrow or something out there, like facially, you're just not going to look good. So you got to teach them that. But the suit, it does have to fit well. It has to be the right color. It has to be the right color based against the tanness of your skin, because a lot of times we see this in bikini a lot. A girl will pick a suit color that with her skin tone and the tan, it all just kind of blends together. So there is an aesthetic to that you do want to match with the guys. With the trunks, some guys have a little bit of a thicker of a waistband. Some guys have a little bit of a thinner one based off how their adductors and their abductors and just all those other muscles kind of tie in. You can make yourself look a little bit better. You can add a little taper. You can take away from it. So I would just say, if you're ugly, you could probably fix it with makeup. Okay, and if you're a guy, don't even worry about it.
Yeah, just get into the best shape you possibly can. Have the best physique you can. That's all that matters, really.
We'll put it this way, and no shade. They let Iris Kyle win how many Olympias?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They didn't care about how she looked. They cared about her physique at the time.
Exactly. So, yeah, I'll leave that there,
All right. Well, listen, I got to go. This is it. Yeah. All I can handle, man. We record these in advance, and I just got back from the Olympia. And I am literally smoked, man. So this is,
I believe it.
I appreciate you understanding, and appreciate everybody at home understanding too. Guys, go to bodyberry.com. You can reach out to Andrew for coaching. Go to, I was going to say Team Skip. You can still go to Team Skip even though he's not here. And mcnallydiets at Gmail. Just don't go to me this week because I'm still trying to catch up. But I'll be back in order. I'm still getting back to my people and stuff from today. So we had a lot of podcasts going on. Guys, we appreciate everybody for tuning in and for another episode of Blood, Sweat, and Gear. We'll see you soon. Thanks to everybody in the live stream. You guys are freaking awesome.